Warning: if you think trick plays and 7-win seasons is championship material, you might be an Auburn fan and find the content of this podcast about Alabama football disturbing.
This is Crimson Corner, a podcast about all things Alabama football. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Now, let's talk Alabama football with your host, Brad Mason and Jamie Thomas.
And here we go. It's time to talk about Alabama football. I am the Auburn fan around here. My name's Brett Mason, my partner in crime and die-hard Alabama fan, Jamie Thomas. War Eagle, sir.
Roll, Tide, roll.
Well, the Tide train is rolling, and that has been the case. We'll talk about that and what we look forward to in this coming up week after I remind you that you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, the Google Play Store, any number of ways you can subscribe and have it delivered to your phone every single week so you don't miss a second of Alabama football goodness. Just search for Crimson Tide and Eagles Nest. Crimson Tide and Eagles Nest. And if you are perhaps interested in Auburn football at all, that subscribes you to both shows. Now, you don't have to listen to both of them, but they'll both come to your phone, and so you'll know what's going on with both teams every single week. Pretty good show in this past week. I thought, Jamie, we'll get your comments on it. It looked a little rough there for a little while. It didn't quite look like Alabama football for a little while, but then things kind of ironed out, and I thought things looked good from then on. I know you're Alabama's harshest critic, so we'll get your thoughts on what stood out to you on the game this past week.
You know, as a Bama fan, this type of offense is it's hard to watch, man. We're not used to this dual threat quarterback. We're not used to this, the read option. Jalen Hurts is just he's an absolute just beast of an athlete. Kid is going to be a legend before he leaves the University of Alabama, before he steps foot out of Tuscaloosa. But man, it's strange watching Bama go left to right, or I guess east to west instead of north and south.
It's very bizarre. It's like if they weren't wearing the uniforms, you wouldn't have thought that was Alabama there for a while.
Yeah, I think I saw I'm pretty sure there was several series in a row, where it was nothing but jet sweeps and read options.
It looked a lot like Auburn, I'll just be honest.
It really did. I mean, if Jalen Hurts was just a little bit taller, if he was, the 6'6", 250, he'd be just like Cam back there. But he's fast, he's resilient. We saw him take some big hits. He really, and right there at the end of the first half, I mean, he pretty much, after he took the big hit and gave up the fumble, he pretty much took that team, put it on his back, and drove down the field and got those points for Bama right there to close out the first half. And for a true freshman to have that kind of poise and that kind of resilience, man, it just it speaks volumes for Jalen Hurts.
Well, I'll tell you what, that kid is, and this to his detriment, I think they'll probably have some talks with him about it, but he is not afraid to make contact, and he's not afraid to fight for another yard, and I think that's something he'll learn. He's a freshman. I think he'll learn that sometimes that extra yard is worth fighting for, and then some other times you don't really need to sacrifice your body, That's something he'll learn with experience, but, I mean, that's a kid you want to keep healthy because he's going to be a superstar, and it's funny. I almost made a suggestion to you via text yesterday that we do a show about, instead of just doing our standard show, that we do a show about how much different Alabama is today than what we had talked about before game one. Because if you remember us having the conversation about was there much chance Jalen would be the quarterback by the end of the year? Remember that conversation?
Yeah, we talked about it, and at the time we really couldn't see it, but a lot of folks that had seen the preseason practice were really high on him. The people that have actually got to see what little bit of the scrimmages were really high on him. And he come into Tuscaloosa, with a pretty big reputation, as being a playmaker, and he's lived up to it. When season started, we thought this was going to be either a single back or an I back formation. We thought we'd see Bama line up with the fullback, handing the ball off 35 or 40 times a football game to a big running back like Bo Scarborough. Calvin Ridley might get 5 or 8 catches a game, or Darius Stewart might get 5 or 8 catches a game. I thought it would be very conservative, but it has turned into.
It's very different. It's completely different.
It's hard to watch and it's hard to talk about. And I know it's been effective, but still, as Bama fans, we're this is an adapting period for us. As we get into really the meat of our schedule after this cupcake this week, we get back into the thick of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Going back to Bo Scarborough, I mean, where has he been all year? We thought he was going to be the guy touching the ball 35, 40 times a football game, and like Derrick Henry did last year. And we have seen, absolutely nothing of him. It has been the speedster and Damian Harris that has gotten most of the touches.
So I'm going to do something that, is hard for me to do as a Auburn fan, but I'm going to tell you something about Nick Saban that just impresses the hell out of me, and I know you're already impressed because you're a dang Bammer. But
we did all right with that hire.
It was a few years ago when he was having some issues defending the new college offenses. If you remember that, and we've talked about it. And I think a season went by and there wasn't much change. And I believe on our very show we had a discussion about that. Is he gonna understand that there's a new paradigm in football? And sure enough, it was the very next season, man, you saw his defense change a little bit. And now, who would have predicted this offense under Nick Saban? It's like he's evolved again. It's like he's a good coach and he knows what works, but then he also he just sees like, okay, we got to evolve this. It's time to evolve this. I'm just very impressed with the way his teams are always good, but they're always evolving to be good in today's environment. You know
what he realized is, playing teams like Ole Miss, and I mean Ole Miss had some really big numbers on offense. Chad Kelly threw for 420 yards passing. That is something I think he understands. Playing that bump and run coverage, that he's never going to be able to completely stop. He's going to play the bump and run. He's going to continue to play the bump and run. That's just his style of defense. So with this new offense, he realized, okay, I'm going to have to put up, 30-plus points a game, just about every game in the SEC in order to be able to, to put that win in the, put that win in the win column.
Yeah, the days of winning with 14 or 17 that's in the history books.
Yeah, they're completely gone. Like I said, even Ole Miss, over 500 yards of total offense. Now the run game, Bama did a really good job, as they always do. It's damn near impossible to run on Alabama, but they do get beat. We saw Marlon Humphrey get beat a couple of times Saturday. We saw Minkah Fitzpatrick before he went out get beat a couple of times on Saturday. And like I said, it's just, it's adapting, like you said, adapting to what college football is today. Not necessarily playing, just smash mouth defense, which they do against the run game, but there's just no way to shut down those wide receivers. Wide receivers have become too tall and too big and too physical to completely shut them down with 5'10" and 6 foot cornerbacks.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's I honestly don't know what to make about this Alabama team as far as the rest of the season goes. I think you're probably as about as fair as evaluator of the team as anybody, so I'd like your opinion on it. There's times when I look at them and I go, no doubt they're undefeated and should be in the playoffs. It's probably what's going to happen. And there's other times I go, you know what? I could totally see them getting bit in the butt once because of I think inconsistencies may be the word I'm looking for. And Nick Saban usually has them there by the end of the year. Don't get me wrong. But they do need to get there because they do have some inconsistencies.
There are a lot of inconsistencies. The offensive line is one of them. The passing game still hasn't come to life yet. We've seen that in seasons past. We don't really throw the ball until we get later in the season, until the quarterback gets a little more comfortable. But, looking at the schedule, you got Kent State coming up. That's a win. Kentucky, more than likely, that's a win. But then, you've got 3 teams right there that are undefeated and are playing pretty good football right now. Arkansas is playing pretty good football. Tennessee has been playing pretty good football when it counts. We saw them kind of struggle a little bit against App State, and then this past week again against Ohio. But man, you put them in the spotlight up under, in Bristol against Virginia Tech, which happens to be a pretty dang good football team. I mean, they played lights out. And we're going to find out more about Tennessee this weekend, as they play Florida. So with Arkansas coming up, Tennessee coming up, Texas A&M, and then, LSU, they're a team that's getting better. It looks like they're starting to find an identity with their new quarterback. And then, you factor in that, and you factor in a team that has Leonard Fournette. You're not going to be able to just stack up and stop Fournette when you have a quarterback that can sling the ball like Ellen does. So there's 4 games right there that Bama could easily be 2-2 in. When you look at having a freshman quarterback and an offense that's not clicking on all cylinders, an offensive line that's struggling with penalties and missed assignments, special teams that still, as far as a place kicker, are still struggling. That 3 points is not guaranteed for Alabama. So there's several circumstances right here where Bama could be a 2-loss team going into the Mississippi State game.
Don't think I can disagree with any of that. I think this A&M team could be, considerably better by the time you see them. And then LSU is out there, man. LSU has the potential to be one of those things. Mississippi State, obviously, I don't think it's much of a problem. So I think there's a potential for missteps, but you really can only, when you talk about an Alabama team, you can only talk about historically what happens, and historically the team continues to get better. So
if Bama didn't have a ferocious, intense defense that was able to make plays and able to just shut an offense down completely for several series in a row, they wouldn't be worthy of that number 1 ranking, because offensively, they're a good, maybe top 10, top 15 team, but they're not the best team in the country yet. Do they have the potential to be the best team in the country? Absolutely. But when you look at that, so does Arkansas, so does Tennessee, so does Texas A&M. This is a league that's got some really good football teams, but no one has really kind of set themselves above the other. I mean, Alabama's got a good football team. Texas A&M's got a good football team. Florida's got a good football team. Georgia, is undefeated. They had a pretty good comeback win. And Tennessee. So, unlike years past where Alabama was kind of the cream of the crop, it's kind of up in the air this year.
I don't know if it's up in the air. I think it's a little bit closer, and I think it's probably because Alabama hasn't settled into its complete dominance on offense, which I think could still potentially happen. I think there's issues with Scarborough and Damian Harris there are one of those things they need to iron out. But I got to say, Harris is impressive, man. But it's like you said when we were texting each other during the game, what happened to him? Scarborough, I don't know. We'll see how that winds up panning out. And then we'll see if that offense continues to evolve as this, as your quarterback, who I still think doesn't know the entire playbook, continues to learn it, and because there's really potential for that to be very dynamic. The unfortunate souls in all of this are the folks from the Kent State Golden Flashers. Let's talk about lines. 43. Now, Ardarius Stewart, did he have injuries? You had another injury or two. I wonder how many people they decide to rest early.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of subs playing. Ardarius is the only one that's going to miss the game unless something changed in today's practice. He's the only one that's going to be out. This is not a potentially season-ending injury, but it is one that he's going to require to miss at least 1 week. Everyone else, I think Ruben's looking good. I think he went out with cramps and then a possible mild leg strain. He's going to be back. So, this is a game that's going to be ugly. No way Bama covers 43, though. They have it covered all year. So.
Well, and I don't think they'd want to. And I would say in some instances they might want to put up some points, but I don't think they have to now. And I think with all those people that could use more time, resting, getting healthy stuff, I think they're just going to be – you're just going to see a lot of seconds and thirds in their play. And so I don't think they're going to try to beat the 43. So to me, I want to make that bet and take the line. And then the 54 – is the over-under, and I'm not sure what to do with that. I'm probably going to leave that alone. You got any thoughts on that?
I'd probably go with the under or the under on that.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, I just don't see Kent State putting up more than 7. So that's the problem.
And really, this is Saban's, this is his school. So he's not going to embarrass them. I mean, he's going to call the dogs off. He's not going to throw 60 up on a team that he has ties like that to, just for their sake. So yeah, I mean he's not going to tell them not to score if they have an opportunity to score, but he's just not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and embarrass Kent State.
The Crimson Corner and Eagles Nest podcast does not endorse or encourage gambling in any form. That being said, we're thinking we're going to...
I'll be placing my wagers.
Take the points with Kent State and try the under is what we're thinking there, purely for entertainment purposes only. Try not to fall asleep during the game, Jamie. Maybe that'd be a good day to go fishing.
I will be fishing. I'll be watching this game on replay. So yeah.
There you go. Good call, buddy. We'll flesh it all out next week, and we'll have some more interesting games to look forward to. Maybe not particularly Kentucky, who looked way better this last week in the second half than they did the first half, but I don't think it's much of a problem. But then you get into the meat and the schedule, so we'll have some fun things to talk about as we get further in the season, and we'll do it all again next week. Sound good?
Sounds good to me, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, brother. War Eagle.
Roll Tide.
Crimson Corner is part of the Brett Mason Media Network. Online at brettmasonmedia.com. Thanks for listening to the show. If you loved it, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or the Google Play Store. And roll Tide.